I wondered how Iowa State would handle a little bit of adversity, a little bit of a tough situation. Well, they're 4-0 in the conference now. So we'll break that down today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you guys for being here every single day. And today, we're going to break down basketball, beginning to end. We'll talk about the men and their win over Texas Tech. What did I see in that game? Maybe a few concerns. And finally, the women and their win over Arizona, completing their trip out to the Sunshine State. I think that's Cali. But either way, I know it's hot in Arizona, so that is sun's hot. That's, you can see where I'm going with that. All right, before we get to that though, first things first, we got to talk about Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, that being said, let's dive in to Iowa State versus Texas Tech in Lubbock. This game was everything you could have ever asked for if you were a fan of the Cyclones. I would say the same about Texas Tech because it was just an electric game all throughout. But obviously a heartbreaker at the end of that. They probably would have wished things didn't quite go that way. And there was a few things in that game Texas Tech probably not a huge fan of. I'll say that. We'll get into that in a second, though. But first, obviously, it was a whiteout. This is a huge game, and I talked about it last week. This is going to be probably the toughest test that Iowa State has faced. Obviously, being on the road is already kind of tough, but then Texas Tech is a pretty solid team. I didn't think they'd be quite on Iowa State's level, so I was curious if Iowa State would play down to them, make it close. How does this game play out? I really did not know. Obviously, because the game had not been played yet. And how would they respond to a little adversity? Because, winning by about 20 points a game up until this point, those are cakewalks. Okay. That's just not really a good way to judge how good a team is, unless you win every game that way. I did mention that, like UConn a couple of years ago. Oh, they'll face a tough test pretty soon. Yeah, they never really did. They kind of won every game by like 15 points. So that was just how good they were. That was definitely a thought that I had. Maybe Iowa State is that good. But the Texas Tech team proved that might not be the case. Maybe it was. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Big 12 Conference is a tough place to play. That being said, this one was fun. Went to overtime, 34-40 at the half, and then the teams flip. So Iowa State goes from scoring 34 in the first to scoring 40 in the second. Texas Tech goes from scoring 40 in the first, 34 in the second half. Then overtime, it comes down to one singular point in which Iowa State grabs, and they win 85-84. As I've said, they moved 4-0 in the conference, 14-1 overall. Now number 2 in the AP poll, whatever that is, the Associated Press rankings. First time in school history, so that is super cool, and I do think this team can handle it. I'm oftentimes pretty, I get a little bit nervous around the rankings, so we're ranked a little too high. I don't want it to go to these guys' heads. No, I think these guys are going to be okay. I think they're going to be able to handle it. The game itself, obviously, like I said, barn burner, and Iowa State came out swinging right away with Tamin Lipsey and the steal off the tip. And to be completely honest, I kind of thought at that point that, hey, maybe we should just, that's how we are. Maybe this team is unbelievable. And then I will say, I kind of thought, for the rest of that game, most of the rest of that game, I'll talk about the exception here in a second. Iowa State was out aggressive, out physicaled, in this game. So that is something that's a little bit concerning. Obviously outside of like the last 10 minutes was where I thought Iowa State really turned it on. But the best indicator of this to me is offensive rebounding. Iowa State ended up with 9, and Texas Tech had 16. That's a really good spot to see it, in my opinion. So it felt like Texas Tech was more aggressive other than those last 10 minutes. And it kept them in the game 100%. Now, that doesn't mean that nobody on Iowa State was trying, however, because Tamin Lipsey probably had his best effort game I've ever seen. And we will, down the line, do a full breakdown on Lipsey's effort and everything. Not today, but everything he brings to the table, because it's so much more than just the stat sheet. And we will talk about the stats here in just a second. But absolute baller game from Lipsey, effort-wise. And then Jefferson. I mean, We keep talking about it. This guy's unbelievable. I can't say enough about Jefferson in this game in more ways than one. That being said, let's dive into the stats here. Top scorers. Curtis Jones, number 5, comes away with 26 points. If he's not your 6th man of the year, I don't know what to tell you. Joshua Jefferson has 17, while Keyshawn Gilbert has 14. And then our other starters, Lipsy, Deshaun Jackson, and Milan, collectively score, what would that be? 22 points. 9 for Lipsy, 8 for Jackson, 5 for us. Well, for Momchilovic. And then Nate Heisey had a pair, 1 bucket for a pair of points, and Brandon Chatfield with 4 points, but one of them was an alley-oop, so that was super sick. Like I had mentioned, offensive rebounding, not great in this game for Iowa State, but there were a few things that I did like. 11 steals, obviously pretty cool. Almost as many steals as assists, with 12 there. Notably, obviously, the free throws were kind of where this game was won and lost. Iowa State 17 of 24, shooting 70%. And on the other hand, you say, well, that's not very good. Well, that's probably pretty accurate. Texas Tech shoots 79% from the line. They just missed them in timely manners, I suppose. Your top scorers for the Red Raiders: JT Toppin with 18, Chance McMillan with 18, and Christian Anderson with 18. So 3 guys going for 18 points. That means between the 3 of them, they had 54. And then Darian Williams with 15 and a couple of different points from different guys. I'm not going to talk about their whole team because this is a show about the Cyclones, not the Red Raiders. If you want to listen to that, go over to Locked On Texas Tech. They do good work over there. That being said, this, looking at that box score, really my biggest concern is, Texas Tech just played really well. They did. And I went in because I was curious, like half by half, how did this look? Iowa State turned it all kind of on in the second half. They shot 0 for 5 from beyond the arc in the first half. And then in the second half, 5 for 10, doubling the amount of attempts there. Only shot 2 in overtime. 53 to 57% from the floor from the first to the second half, and 55% from the line in the first half to 71% in the second half. That was what I was just kind of curious about because, that's something that it's a tale of 2 halves, essentially. When I looked at the box score, 34-40, 34-40, then you flip them. 19 points off of turnovers and 50 points in the paint. Okay, enough numbers. Iowa State is unbelievably clutch, is what I gathered from this game. And we have talked about, over and over about how they can win in different ways. We have not seen them yet win from the line. And they did this, that here. Obviously Jefferson with the final play of regulation wasn't so much on Jefferson as it was kind of on Nate Heisey, on Taman Lipsy, the way that they moved the ball up the floor, which they had a fair amount of time, over 6 seconds. But the free throws with 4, I think it's 4.1. Unbelievable. Yeah. Makes them both. Jefferson does. Are you kidding me? That place was roaring. It was making me shaking my boots. And I'm, like a freaking 1,000 miles away? I don't know how far it is, but either way, I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be intimidating. A wall of white. It's a whiteout. That place is loud. Texas Tech in it. They're going to beat the number 3 team in the nation. And no, Jefferson steps up to the line and makes 2 big ones. And puts, essentially puts it away. I did want to mention as well, Nate Heisey with the 2, his sole bucket of the night. Yeah, 2 points, had all 5 fouls, 2 assists, 9 rebounds. That's pretty good, actually. But either way, the sole bucket he did have was awesome. Little backdoor cut to make it 70-72 with 2:26 left in the game. And to remind you, or if you weren't aware, Texas Tech only scored 1 point between 2:26 left and 20 seconds. So in basically the next 2 minutes, nothing really happened. And that bucket proved to be very, very vital. That's for sure. That being said, we kind of overlaid the whole game. What happened in this game? And that's kind of what we just talked about, obviously. But the question is this concerning? It's really close. This is very, very close. We'll talk about that coming up right after this. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back, guaranteed. All while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Iowa State defeating Texas Tech 85-84 in an overtime thriller in Lubbock. Was so much fun to watch. That I almost, loved every second of it. But then it ended, and I was like, you know what? That was really close, actually. What's the deal there? Why did that happen? Well, let's talk about today on Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There's a couple things that I saw in this game that were slightly concerning, but I think more than anything, I will tell you right now, I think it's just that the Big 12 is a very good basketball conference, and Texas Tech, is a very good basketball team. Their Red Raiders men's team is very good. Now, that being said, the biggest thing was, well, when you watch it back, Texas Tech could have won this game multiple times. Free throws were a problem for them, and we have this conversation all the time. Not here necessarily, but those in my sphere basically say, coulda, shoulda, woulda. The best teams, the winners, these best championship teams get it done. And that's what happened today, on Saturday. Iowa State comes away with the win. So at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. But we're diving in a little bit deeper here. I am a little concerned about how easily it seemed Texas Tech could have easily scored that last bucket. I mean, you had a floater from just inside the free throw line, and it goes off the back iron. But against a stone cold killer, that definitely could go in. Really, anyone. I mean, you kidding me? Williams was the Darian Williams, obviously, with 15 points in this game, pretty solid. So it's not like we're facing a nobody here, but still. I don't know. And that's literally one play, but it is still a play that happened. And I don't know. That was, I guess, one of those we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We got to the bridge. So now we know that maybe we need to evaluate how we're going to stop late game situations. Because you get the free throws, 4 seconds left. You're going to win, or at least they're go ahead. You are currently winning. And Texas Tech literally just dribbled and easily could have floated that in. So that was slightly concerning. But it's only one play. And that's a concept that I'm sure will be covered, because we're going to have a lot more close games. Maybe not this close, but a lot more close games, come down the stretch here. The other thing that concerned me was just an overall what appeared to be lack of aggressiveness in namely the offensive rebounds. 9 offensive rebounds to 16. Being able to get it done was obviously good, but I don't know if that's a great sign moving forward. Overall, we shot pretty good from the floor, almost 53%. You round up to that from the field, and 35% from three. So solid numbers from the shooting standpoint. But getting the rebound and putting a few back is always going to help. It just is, right? And I feel like Brandon Chatfield is a dog, and that's kind of where he excels. We just need a little bit more overall, I think, aggressive. We were pretty okay. I did see a couple moments where it felt like maybe we were slipping, and that's what this team's talked about, is how we haven't played our best game yet. We play really solid games, but we have a couple slip-ups here, maybe there, whatever the case might be. And I felt like while the intensity wasn't as high as it normally was, you still saw a few slip-ups in this game from Iowa State, intensity-wise. And so that's something as well that I would like to see just addressed, because to me, it's a close game. It's a close game. And I think it came down to a lot of these factors like the offensive rebounding and overall aggressiveness. Because this is still like we're still an aggressive team. That's kind of what ISU is known for. The way that we run our mentality and are so aggressive because we still have 11 steals. That's over double the amount of steals that Texas Tech had. So it's not like we're not out there playing like we're just lollygagging around. I don't want to come across that way. No, but I did notice it just felt like there were a few moments where, man, I mean, come on, guys, get on your horse a little bit here. I'm sure you're tired, but we are kind of in the thick of it now. We're going to have game type of deal. So got to have to, find a way for that to get figured out, I guess. And then, the free throws was the bright side. This team, very clutch, clearly. Offensively down the stretch, I thought we knew what we were doing. And that was, obviously this team's good. We're nitpicking here. And that's the other side of this. I think Texas Tech is really good as well. I think that this is a bit of a it's tough because this is the toughest game that Iowa State has, really been in. But I think Texas Tech is the best, other than Auburn, of course, like those games from however long ago. But Texas Tech in the conference, definitely the toughest game we've played. Currently 4-0, could easily be 3-1, one floater away. But no, I don't think this is anything we have to worry about. I think this team is still very sound, very solid, can beat you in multiple different ways, and we saw it with the free throws, in this one. And so I'm not concerned. No, I'm not really concerned at all. I will say it was a little weird to lead for 1 minute and 39 seconds of a game you win. But either way, down 13, get the comeback in, just territory that is not kind. Let's put it that way. Nothing against Lubbock. I mean, it's just a hostile environment. Number 3 team in the nation, you're going to have target on your back. So, and now number 2. So Iowa State finding a way to get that done is good. Doesn't really matter if you win by 1 point or you win by 23 points, which we've done both. You just have to win, right? We're not talking about how close was the Utah game now. No, that's just one of the 14 wins we have now. And guess what? In a couple of weeks, this one might still get brought up because it was so close. But for the most part, it'll be, well, remember they beat Texas Tech. That's one of their little 14 wins or one of their 4 wins in the conference. That's really what this comes down to. So we are getting a little bit nitpicky here. But I think overall, Texas Tech, very solid team. And it was closer than I would have liked, but really not the end of the world. Not concerned about this team. Just a few things I'd like to see cleaned up and a little bit more effort, maybe. But that's such a crazy thing for me to say. I completely acknowledge that. I almost hate saying that because it's just that there were a few moments, that's all. But overall, great win. And I think this helps the team significantly moving forward. Significantly. Gives them the confidence that they can be in these close games. It's just another rep of what to do in these close games. Going to have to evaluate the last play Texas Tech had. How can we, go about that a little bit better? But either way, very, very solid win. Speaking of solid wins, the women beating Arizona, that's a big one. That is certainly a big one for the ladies. So we are going to have to break that, we'll have to talk about that. But we'll do that coming up right after this. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games, and I can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. While the men won their game against Texas Tech and stole a lot of the media surrounding Iowa State, the women also came away with a big win against Arizona. You're here, Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Iowa State beat Arizona. The ladies beat Arizona's women's team 79-58 to move to 12-6 and 3-2 in conference. Now, what happened in this game? Certainly an interesting one, actually. Not quite what we're used to seeing. Audie Crooks didn't score until 6 minutes were remaining in the second quarter. That's 14 minutes into the game. And she ends the game with only 11 points. That's kind of crazy. Low key. I mean, we're used to them, Audie's put up 20, 30 points. 40, obviously a bit of a stretch, but still didn't score for the first 14 minutes of this game. And still, that's a whole first quarter, and Iowa State still wins the first quarter 15-6. So solid showing from our Cyclones there. Only lost the second quarter and only by 3 points, which came on a buzzer beater. And I will say, Lauren Swan, dude, yes, this is a Locked On Cyclones show, but that shot was awesome. I'll leave it at that. Buzzer beater. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. That was awesome. Just don't see those very often, so you have to kind of enjoy them while they're around. That being said, let's take a look at the Cyclones here. Addie Brown with 11. Audie Crooks, obviously, I already mentioned, with 11. Kelsey Jones, we'll talk about her more in a second, with 8. Ariana Jackson with 5. And Emily Ryan with 15. And then Sydney Harris coming off the bench with 24 of her own, going 5 of 9 from beyond the arc. That's pretty solid spread, kind of what we talked about, before with we want to get away from the Audie Crooks and Emily Ryan show. I'd like to get more people involved. I'd like to spread the rock around. We see everyone contributing pretty evenly, and that's what we saw here. And, to show for it is a 21-point win. So that maybe we should keep doing that. Addie Brown, 10 points there, kind of coming onto the scene as that, not necessarily third option, but it just seems like she's pretty consistently there. Goes 4 of 13 from the floor, so about 33%, just a shy of that, probably around 30%. Hits both her free throws, though. The interesting one to me is Kelsey Jones. This is the second game in which Kelsey Jones is starting over Sydney Harris. I'm just not sure. And it's an interesting one because when you look at the men's team as well, it's about, I would say chemistry, but it's not. But either way, Curtis Jones coming off the bench for the men, some people would look at and say, well, why isn't Taman, maybe just sit Taman Lipsey, put Curtis Jones in for Taman. I mean, he's scoring way more points, Curtis Jones is. That's not how it works. That's not how that team runs. And maybe that's the same thing here for these women with Kelsey Jones in only played 20 minutes. And Ariana Jackson only played 18, another starter. Excuse me. But Reagan Wilson and Sydney Harris both surpassing Kelsey Jones in minutes, and Ariana Jackson, who has less. But Sydney Harris with 32 points in 24 points in 32 minutes. It's pretty good. Now, granted, just went off from 3. But I am curious to see if we move back towards that Sydney Harrison starting lineup and Jones coming off the bench. Or is this one of those things where, Jones still had 8 points. So I think she's performing better, in my opinion, as a starter. But she's just not really – I don't know. It's so weird the way that works out because it seems like this lineup is better. It does seem that way. But then when you switch it around, back to how it was, like, why wouldn't you put the one who's scoring more? I don't know. Either way, Iowa State comes away with a win by 21 points there over Arizona, who is now 11-7. So pretty even matchup and a big win in an even matchup like that is always going to be a good thing. That's pretty sweet. They'll play Texas Tech here tomorrow at 6:30 at home. So the road trip is over. And then obviously every game's going to be tough, but they'll play a West Virginia who is number 20 overall. And that's going to be That's going to be a fun one. That'll be fun. It'll be in West Virginia, of course. Breaking it down, obviously 12-6 in the conference, pretty solid. Currently 6th in the Big 12, nothing too crazy there. But this women's team, as I've mentioned all year, is definitely better than that 12-6 record. I think that this team can go toe to toe with really a lot of the top tier programs. Not obviously all of them. I don't think this is a championship caliber team, as much as I hate to say it, but they're pretty solid. They are pretty good. Breaking it down by the quarter here, shooting 100% in every quarter from the free throw line, except for one, is a good look. Field goal wise, we had bad, fourth quarter being the best shooting percentage number. 8 of 11 in the fourth quarter is a good sign in a game in which you've effectively run away with it at that point anyways. So it's not really that close, but still a good sign. And then from the 3-point arc, shooting 60%, 3 of 5 in 2 of the quarters is very solid. And this team, I never thought it was that close with Arizona. So it's kind of tough to really be like, okay, this is a really good win. But I think it is definitely something where this just shows that this team's better than what we've potentially seen. I think the Utah loss was one that they could have actually gotten a win there. Then you're 4-1 in the conference, right? I personally, I don't know. That's just the way that game ended. I didn't think was perfect. And then Oklahoma State, it's only a 6-point loss. And then other than that, Iowa, that's a rivalry game. And number 4 overall, UConn, South Carolina. Like these teams, I think Iowa State's pretty good, guys. This women's team is definitely solid. So look forward to, obviously the games I mentioned that they'll be playing. But the road trip, double back-to-back wins for Iowa State against ASU and Arizona is big-time win for the Lady Clones. I know that they're just the Cyclones, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to get confused with the men. And, I mean, we could be making a run here. I'm not going to lie. This could be what this team needed because it felt like 3 out of 4, games being a loss. UConn, Oklahoma State, then you beat Kansas, but then you lose again to Utah. It's like, okay, we're on a skid here. We gotta figure something out pronto. We got to put our feet down and stop the bleeding. And then you go and you get both of these wins against Arizona teams, and you get to come back home. I think this is exactly where they want to be. Bill Fennelly's got to be feeling a lot better than he was, 2 weeks ago. And Arizona State and Arizona, not necessarily the best teams in the Big 12, but it's still the Big 12. Everyone in the Big 12 is a good team. They really are. So I'm pretty confident in both of those wins for the Cyclones, and I think that they're better than their record shows, and they have a pretty solid record to show as well. So that's a huge win. That being said, we'll break down more around the upcoming game against Texas Tech tomorrow. That's it for today, guys. Shout out to you for listening every single day. I appreciate you more than you know. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.